Welcome to the Tail Slate. Today we're shooting at our favorite place, everything pop culture. If you like comics and collectibles, make sure you check out everything pop culture. Today we're going to be talking about the Marvel and DC cinematic universes. What are the pros and the cons of these things? With me, I've got Matt Campagna, a writer and director, and Brian Trerice, a comic book and sci-fi fan. So let's start the discussion with the fact that there are these universes that they've created, and just in general, do you like it?
Wow, I mean, Marvel has a universe. Does DC have a universe?
They're starting to.
Are we calling a movie and then like a movie that comes out almost in a week a universe? I don't know. I think in order to have a universe, you need to not say you have one. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
If you jump into it saying, oh, look at our cinematic, or what are they calling it? The extended universe, the DCEU. But anyway, I think the big trick is for people to say that you have one. It's sort of like when Kanye says, I'm a creative genius. It's like, if you had to say that, you're not. If you have to describe your universe as a universe before the news does, you're just trying too hard.
Well, I figured I see it as they do have an extended universe with, if you include the TV shows, because they have been combining all their shows together, much the way that Marvel's been combining all their movies together. So I think that they're going to kind of do the same thing that Marvel did, where they had the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. touch into the Avengers movies. They'll do that with this as well. Maybe not so directly.
Really? You think
they
that
will.
they're going to cross the TV film divide?
Not with the exact characters. Actors.
With the actors?
But with the characters, yes.
Characters,
I think what they're doing is like with Supergirl, they're introducing Martian Manhunter, and he was part of the Justice League. He's originally was a member of the Justice League in the comic, and they made him part of the Justice League in the cartoon. They'll do it for the movie.
But we won't see that iteration.
No.
Which to
We'll see
me
another one.
means that's not one universe.
Yeah, I wouldn't count
it's
that
a
as
multiverse.
universe. Yeah.
It's a multiverse.
And really, if we have to call it a multiverse, that means it's not thought out well enough to be one universe. When you watch the Netflix Daredevil series season 2, they're talking about all the things that the movie coming out in 2 months, Civil War, is going to be touching on. They reference Jessica Jones. They talk about the incident. It all fits together because Kevin Feige is a bloody genius. Because they are putting the time and the effort, and they're making sure that we do not sell the rights to an idea, to a TV show, to a station, or to a production company that's not going to be a part of the vision. And I'd say what Marvel lacks in remembering to keep the rights to their characters, X-Men, Fantastic Four, etc., they more than make up for by allowing their universe to be one fully formed, beautiful, and symmetrical thing that looks like our universe with heroes.
Well, let me ask you then, because I have a little bit of a problem with especially the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because that's the one we've seen more of. I may have a problem with the DC Universe once they get that going.
Well, I have a problem. They've barely started, so yeah.
But my problem is, it comes down to like storytelling. You're now limiting yourself to having to tell stories where all these other characters exist, and that can sometimes limit the danger that might be happening. Takes, for example, in Thor 2, he's got all this crazy stuff happening, world-threatening event going on in London. Would not Tony Stark, who might be watching the news, go, you know, I could fly out there and help out?
S.H.I.E.L.D.
But
they should be
S.H.I.E.L.D. is an American organization. Tony Stark's in probably Malibu trying to build his condo back. And by the time anyone could have gotten from North America to London, that problem solved itself in about 2 hours. So I think you're right. They backed themselves into a certain corner, but they've been working beautifully in that corner. You look at what happened in Captain America 2. That was an on-the-run espionage film where anybody who was able to catch up with Cap did, and they were in the movie. And you look at what happened in Iron Man 3, where Iron Patriot, his buddy, was there. So you had the War Machine involved in it. They're doing a really great job of keeping characters together, and look at what's happening with Civil War, where the stakes keep amping up, and you're right, they'll find themselves in situations where they can't conceivably just be Captain America by himself against one guy when the threat is that huge.
This is interesting, that movie, they're calling it a Captain America movie, but really, it's an Avengers movie.
It looks a bit like Avengers 2.5, but apparently it is through and through a Captain America film. So, and really, in every Captain America film, you've had the story of Steve and Bucky and their relationship. And it looks like 3 is going to carry that through.
Yeah, it's obviously whatever happens starts with Bucky. Like in the comics, it was a villain, Nitro, I believe it was, blew up, killed a bunch of school kids. And that's when, because of a bunch of heroes were chasing him.
And they blamed Speedball, and it became a huge thing. But none of these characters exist in the Marvel universe, cinematic universe yet.
They have to bring in someone else who's the focus. Bucky, perfect character, because he was originally captured by the Russians, messed with, and then sent back to be a bad guy, and rescued, supposedly fixed. We'll see. I mean, he's still violent.
They'll be interesting, I think, no matter what happens with Captain America, if they wind up changing the man or woman who holds the shield over time, I think Bucky's role will be really complicated and interesting. And hopefully they drop this Hulk and Black Widow romance, because I want to see the Black Widow and Bucky romance. That to me is interesting. The two red soldiers who have come back to the that's so beautiful in the comics, and I'd love to see it happen.
I was going to say they did bring that up in the comics, and I don't know where they went with it though.
They went some neat places, so I'd really like to see if we can see that happen.
But as a writer, though, if you were given, if you were given the choice to write for them, it'd be amazing. But would you prefer to have to work within the constraints of the continuity that they've created, or would you prefer to write a standalone superhero movie where you could do whatever you want because there isn't all this continuity you've got to worry about in this universe?
I mean, as a comic geek, I don't think comic book characters are served well on their own when they are known by the fans as existing in this universe with all these other characters. It was the weakness I've always found of every Spider-Man film. It's the weaknesses I've found in the Fantastic Four films, in the X-Men films. The scope is small. And if I could have chosen between being Tim Burton in 1989 and making my favorite Batman film, or being Zack Snyder now and being able to make a Batman film where the whole universe is my playground, I would pick now. Plus, what DC is doing is really allowing filmmakers to push the storyline, as opposed to having a producer like Kevin Feige who pulls the strings, and directors who are more amenable to working within a studio system and are more amenable to the idea of, yeah, sure, we'll tell a story that is 80% my story and 20% yours, so the story keeps moving forward. DC and Warner Brothers aren't making people do that in the same way, so I'd be attracted to the DC.
I do want to talk about DC in a second, but quickly back to the Marvel. And this was another complaint I had with their universe. Guardians of the Galaxy, loved the movie.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite superhero movies, and partly because I didn't know anything about the characters. And I thought, oh, this is going to be silly, a talking raccoon, what is that? But it worked very well. The one thing that felt shoehorned in there and out of place was Thanos.
Really?
It was sort of like, okay, they have to put him in because
they're trying to connect
it's got to
the
connect
rest
to
of
the other
universe.
universe.
I didn't find it shoehorned at all.
No?
No, because to me, whenever Thanos is shoehorned into the end credit scene of an Earth-based Avengers film, to me that feels shoehorned in. That's oh, and now we'll zoom out and show you where we're going. And those are cool, they're neat little teases. But I thought actually getting to see Thanos was a lot of fun.
Do you think he works as a villain? I don't feel anything from him at all.
I don't like or dislike him yet because he's had probably 10 minutes of screen time.
Well, he's supposed to be like the big bad that is always lurking in the background. You know, the Wilson Fisk of the universe.
Yeah.
But the one thing I didn't think he was shoehorned in either case. To me, at the end of the movies when they're showing it, that was like the at the end of a comic book and they have the teaser page where it's like
Yeah.
next month, and then they show you something leading up to it. And I thought, yeah, that's perfect. That's great doing that.
Yeah, it's really enjoyable. Whereas at the end of Man of Steel, I had absolutely no interest in what happened next. It's like, you have made a Superman I don't care about. I like the actor. Henry Cavill is the best portrayal of Superman with the worst words for Superman.
Yeah, I think that may be just the sign of the times. I think a lot of people are putting maybe politics into what they're saying. I know they've always have, but with Superman, he's always just been, truth, justice, and the American way, kind of.
I
you
kind
don't
of like
really go beyond
I kind
that.
of like this Superman. I mean, I
Oh,
like
do
the fact
too.
that
I
he's
do
a little
like the
more
Superman, but
interesting as far as not being just the goody-goody.
I don't know. To
Kinda guy.
me,
No, it's-
to me, the best Superman on film right now is named Captain America. Because they've managed to, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, build a character who represents goodness, altruism, and that truth, justice, and American way, and figured out a way to do it in a way that doesn't feel wacky, goofy, silly. He fights against modern government because modern government is so corrupt. And the fact that instead of making that the story of Superman, they decided to just make Superman also corrupted by having a father who was sardonic and thought, no, don't be a good guy, be selfish. It's like, that's not Pa Kent. I mean, the fact that they're building the DC cinematic universe on sand, on a movie that was not really Superman. It was a guy in blue tights that they wanted to be Superman, and they didn't even have the balls to make that the title of the movie. Man of Steel was not a Superman movie.
But now, keeping with DC though, and now obviously we haven't seen much else yet. I mean, we really just have the one movie, Man of Steel. We've got Batman v Superman coming out. We'll be having soon Suicide Squad coming out, and all we can base our opinions on right now is the trailers.
Well,
Thoughts
and the directors.
Well, and the directors. But thoughts on how, at least with the trailers so far, they seem to be tying together their universe.
Yeah, well, they're trying, but I don't think that's the most compelling thing. The most compelling thing in Marvel is this beautiful story arcing craziness. The most compelling thing for me in DC is this beautiful reliance upon a filmmaker. They're touting this as they're like, this is what separates us. And I like that idea because instead of just copycatting it, they're trying to do the complete opposite of what Marvel does at every turn, almost suspiciously so. And I think it's interesting that David Ayer so far has the most promising looking DC movie. Because Batman, Superman, not looking great. It's that look that has only served Snyder twice. Positively. It worked beautifully in 300 and beautifully in Watchmen, and every other movie I've seen it in, just that aesthetic doesn't work for Superman. It sure as hell doesn't work for him again in the new movie. This new Batman movie looks like it has Superman cameos. So to me, it feels like a Batman movie. But Ayer is putting together a really cool aesthetic for this film. The characters are very interesting, and they're characters that a lot of them have never been on film before. And that, to me, is what makes it most fascinating. With the exception of Jared Leto, I mean, it's all characters that we haven't seen before.
I found I had very little knowledge of Suicide Squad before seeing the trailer, and no desire to really see it until I saw the trailer. And the trailer actually did grab my attention. And I like the fact that they, even in the trailer, and I kind of like these more subtle nods to the other films rather than trying to make everything that happens in another film part of it. Now, I don't know what will be in the film, but there was a subtle nod where she's talking about, maybe Superman's dragged all these crazy people out of the woodwork kind of thing. That's the perfect way to connect the movie, which is probably not connected in any other way other than that's the nod to, yes, we're part of the same universe. Batman will be in it too, obviously.
They're the Guardians of the Galaxy for DC.
For DC, yeah.
Because it's everything. You've got criminals, in the heroic position. They're mostly in it for themselves, but they end up doing an overall good. And they're sardonic, they're witty, they make jokes about everyone and everything. And then in the end, they save the day and they look like the good guys. So I think that is what they're doing. They DC tried to make this their Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a small comic that not a lot of the mainstream people will know, and that you get to have fun with the characters. You get because nobody knows what they're like.
I think that's what it is. This is the first DC cinematic universe movie that looks fun.
Yeah.
Comic books are fun, guys. Why are you making these just brutally harsh, mean movies about Superman and Batman? They are fun. That's one thing Marvel has killed. They've got it in the bag. Fun is what movies should be. They should have a plot, they should have stakes, you should care, but God, make it fun. And that's something that Snyder and Goyer and Nolan have just robbed us of. Because as much as the first Batman movie in 1989, the first modern Batman movie, was dark and brooding because this is a dark and brooding character, it was fun. There were moments where Bruce Wayne would put down his champagne flute, walk away from it, and Alfred would pick it up before it falls off the tree that he placed it on. Like those beautiful moments that just allow you to have some fun in a movie. And watching the Dark Knight trilogy just made me want to stab myself in the eyes because they're just not fun. You can't put the Joker in a movie and be that not funny. He was frightening,
Yes,
but
he
he
was.
needs
I
to
liked
be.
him.
Well,
I mean,
you-
that's the point. Is that he's the Joker, which you'd think, oh, that's fun. It's somebody who's funny. 'Cause
He's an
he's
anti-villain.
smiling. Yeah, but he's a psychopath. He's supposed to be a psychopath. You're supposed to be scared of him. I mean, he's supposed to be the reverse of Batman, or the other side of the coin, which is you've got Batman, who's supposed to be a scary superhero, anti-hero, and then you've got the Joker, who's supposed to be the scary anti-villain, you know, complete nihilist. He doesn't care. You know, Batman cares. He just doesn't look like he cares. You know.
To me, the best version of the Joker is still Mark Hamill in the animated series. To me,
Yes,
if
yeah.
the animated series and that Bruce Timm Justice League series, if all of that was the imprint from which this new DC extended universe sprang from, it would be amazing. But I really feel like they're trying to go this darker way. Marvel wants 12-year-olds and up, but DC wants 16-year-olds and up. And 16-year-olds can be grumpy people. I remember being a grumpy 16-year-old.
I honestly, I don't mind the grumpier movies. I like fun, but I don't like silliness. I like realistic
and
superheroes.
I wouldn't call Iron Man silly.
No, Iron Man was done well.
Yeah.
There was a few
I
things
call
that
Iron Man 3 silly.
Yeah, we got a little
Why?
bit
Because
silly.
it was a Christmas movie?
Yes. No, whenever you bring some kid in to have him help save the day, it's like, okay, you're getting silly. You're playing to the young audience. I get that, but for somebody who's been around the block a few times now, I don't want to see silly in my
Well,
superheroes.
see, I didn't find the child character in Iron Man 3 problematic because I saw Tony seeing himself as a younger child.
Yeah, the child didn't bother me.
Yeah, the kid, I like the kid. I also like the fact that the kid was the sounding board because without Pepper Potts there, without War Machine, you need somebody to talk to, or you've just got a really quiet hero doing kind of silent things by
Well,
himself.
Yeah.
That was another issue I had with that movie. It's just, I don't know. Overall, I get it. You want to. He's the character that if you want to defeat him, like Batman, you strip him of everything, and then he has to work his way back up. But because he's such a high-tech hero, how do you build yourself back up with nothing? I mean, like.
Well, that was the fun thing to
that
watch
was-
him build bits that would
Yeah.
actually allow him. It felt like a bit of an espionage film during that middle act, where he was just out of his suit, trying to survive against things that could kill him in an instant. And I mean, there's that act in each of the Iron Man films where he has to build something.
Yeah.
That's his thing, and so I think that was what necessitated it, and I liked it.
Okay. I just think if you're going to have him build something, you have to give him more than a child's workshop to work with. I just
Well,
find
there's the challenge.
That's what I'm
He did
talking
it-
about as being silly.
And he
It's
did
like-
it in a cave. So
right, he did
if
it
he
in a
can
cave in the
if he can
beginning.
build an
That's right.
Iron Man in a cave, and then he
with
can
help,
build a new
with all the technology that he himself designed and built.
and then he can build a new
company.
element in his own office. But it's nice to just try to recharge one of his own suits.
Yeah.
Even that was a
I get
great.
it. It was a MacGyver moment. It's like, okay, but I
So
find it
overall,
silly.
though, obviously you're liking the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Are you feeling hopeful or worried about the DC?
Oh, I don't know if I could get more worried than I already am. The first suit, really, after Man of Steel, I walked out of it, and my wife loved Smallville.
Yeah.
You know, she recognizes that 50% of it was garbage, but the 50% of it that wasn't was special to her.
Yeah.
And so to go into a Superman movie and watch Clark Kent's dad get killed by a hurricane
Yeah.
instead of a heart attack,
Yeah.
and to have Clark Kent's dad be somebody who tells him to not be a hero, that ruins the whole concept. The heart of Superman is broken. And if you start with a broken Superman, you can't make a good Superman film. He's all heart. And so I feel like by missing by a mile the main characteristics of Superman, that is not a good Superman film. They also, you know, started with the perfect villain for Superman, so they could just punch for an act, and it just got loud and boring, and nobody cared. So like that whole back half of that movie didn't matter. And now I feel like this new Batman v Superman film is apologizing for that. The fact that they're showing up and realizing, oh crap, we did kill like 2 million people when we did that, didn't we? Oops. I feel like Zack Snyder finished that film and was like, hey, that was a great film, and then didn't realize what he had done until the backlash happened.
So do you think then that this film is, like you said, an apology, or do you think that they set it up to happen this way? Like
They did not set it up to
No,
happen this
I
way.
think they're using, and that's good writing
Very
too.
cleverly,
Yeah,
yes.
it's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, that's a good sequel. Makes it feel like the first one is supposed to be written that way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's good retcon, because really that's what it is. It's trying to make it seem like, oh, we made that horrible choice on purpose. So that, and I think those apology elements might be why this is a 2.5-hour movie cut down from a 4-hour movie. Like, they're just trying to put so much into this movie because they're so far behind the 8 ball compared to Marvel.
I want to see the Super Friends on film. Anyways, that's great. That's our talk for on the cinematic universes of both Marvel and DC, and we're gonna have more stuff coming up in future episodes. So be sure to subscribe and keep watching.